welcome to our English news edition broadcast to you on Canal Algérie. To the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, holds a phone conversation with his Tunisian counterpart, Qais Said, during which they reviewed bilateral cooperation and a set of issues of common interest. A spotlight on the pharmaceutical industry in Algeria due to halve the exports is billed with the production of insulin pens, a case in point, the Constantine plant. The export sector is due to witness a giant stride with the facilitations being granted to boost this vital activity at the level of ports. And Morocco is always in dire straits with demonstrations finger-pointing the Makhzen regime unable to deal with the multifaceted challenges. Good evening and welcome back. First, we kick off our news with the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, who held on Tuesday a phone conversation with his brother, the President of the Republic of Tunisia, Qais Said, during which they evoked the strong bilateral relations binding the two countries. The two heads of state discussed on the occasion several bilateral issues of common interest as well. The pharmaceutical industry is in boom in Algeria, notably with the insulin production due to be launched officially next month, a move that will halve the exports bill and meet the needs of the national market. Let's shed light on the Constantine promising production unit with our reporter Najah Tayar.
Despite the challenges being faced to guarantee health security and meet the needs of the local market in medicines, Saidal Group aims to a higher level in terms of insulin production with the launch of the unit of Constantine next March. We will start producing insulin thanks to the local authorities' support and thanks to the acquired skills. We will start the production with the expected quantities by the beginning of next month. We'll start by the production of insulin for hospital use before moving to insulin analogs production. Saidal Group possesses the highest quality equipment and has the most skilled employees, all and more to guarantee the insulin production. In addition to the good equipment that we have, all of us work very hard for the best results. We make sure that the equipment and the product are always in line with the international standards. The local insulin production meets the needs of the national market up to 50% and halves the insulin import bill estimated at $400 million. Worth to mention that with its development and diversification strategy, Saidal Group is now working on the production of anti-cancer medicines to make them available in the upcoming months.
For their part, the Algerian customs granted a number of facilitations to economic operators so as to ease the exportation process, notably when it comes to non-hydrocarbon products. More insights with Melissa Kabash.
With an aim to gain more time, promote and encourage exportation outside hydrocarbons, a series of facilitations have been granted to exporters by the customs services.
The customs services aim at encouraging the export operation of the national products through a facilitation strategy, which consists of reducing the customs clearance time. Indeed, we've recorded a number of export operations, including foodstuffs, agricultural products and medical equipment.
The Algerian customs established for control circuits so as to effectively monitor both imports and exports and avoid any interference with the export operations. Among the facilitations granted to exporters is the setting up of circuits control, which includes the green one, the control isn't carried immediately, the orange one, the merchandise is taken due to a document control, and the red circuit dedicated to the check of goods in the presence of the person in charge of the operation. For the blue one, the General Directorate of the Customs mobilized this circuit for the benefit of economic operators active in the agricultural sector.
حوالي
5,156 export declarations were recorded by the services of Algiers port, with shipments reaching nearly 400,000 tons. With an estimated value of 33 billion dinars, our strategy is to encourage and accompany exporters, namely those specialized in production. The exporter can get an export declaration at the level of their nearest customs office.
خاصة العاملين في مجال التصنيع.
The facilitations granted to the economic operators will contribute enormously to strengthening the national economy and economic dynamism related to the exportation and importation of goods.
In parliamentary activity, this Tuesday marked the kickoff of the proceedings of the Parliamentary Day organized by the National Defense Commission under the motto Social Security, the Reality of Threats and Response Strategies. The President of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, stated on the occasion that social security constitutes one of the key factors for consolidating national unity and is vital for achieving global development. Boughali went on to hail Algeria's achievements, which would not have been possible without people devoted to the institutions that preserve the stability and security of the country, as well as the strong political will, the results of which appear clearly in the daily life of the citizen. On the occasion of the symposium held by experts in political science, a series of recommendations were adopted, among them the creation of a commission for the issuing of a yearly report on social security in Algeria. In other news, the Health Minister Abdelhak Saihi is now on a working visit to Cuba. In the Cuban capital, Havana, Saihi co-chaired with the Cuban Minister of Exterior Trade the proceedings of the joint Algerian-Cuban Commission for Economic, Trade, Scientific, Technical and Cultural Cooperation. On the sidelines of these proceedings, the Health Minister was received by the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez, to whom he conveyed the greetings of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. Abdelhak Saihi also met with several Cuban politicians. On the occasion of the Martyrs' Day and the Friends of the National Revolution, the Cultures Palace Mufti Zakaria here in Algiers organized a cultural event under the motto Foreigners with Algerian Hearts and Blood. This was jointly held by the Mish'al Shahid Association and the Ministry of Mujahideen and the Ministry of Culture, in the presence of war veterans, ambassadors of brotherly countries, as well as the President of the Republic's advisor in charge of National Archive and Memory. In another context, the devastating earthquake which hit Turkey and Syria resulted in a heavy death toll which exceeded the 35,000 people in the two countries. Rescue teams are relentlessly working in quest of finding more survivors under the rubble. A Saudi aircraft carrying humanitarian aid landed on Tuesday morning in Aleppo, the first Saudi plane landing on Syrian soil in 10 years. Several other aircraft from several countries then arrived to Syria, breaking the diplomatic isolation of the Syrian government. As for Algeria, it was the first country to arrive. Algerian rescue teams of civil defense were deployed in both Syria and Turkey, where they successfully rescued 14 individuals and retrieved 130 dead bodies buried under the rubble, according to an updated report. Still with the international news, the Sahrawi prisoners held in Moroccan prisons are suffering from the most heinous treatments by the Moroccan occupation authorities, as it is the case of the prisoner Mohammed Ahnini al-Rohbani, a victim of abuse as he was brutally beaten by a prison guard. An attack which is part of a cruel and racist campaign targeting Sahrawi prisoners of group Gdim Izik by the prison director of 8 Millul II, after several complaints were filed by these prisoners to denounce the terrible conditions and harsh treatment that they had to endure. In Morocco, demonstrations keep unabated to denounce the ever-worsening living conditions and the violent repression towards the protesters who remain determined to make their voice heard. The protest spiral is getting larger while the Makhzen regime is unable to cope with this flashpoint situation. More details with Najah Diyar.
At Casablanca, the contractual teachers continue to protest in front of the Regional Directorate of Education and Training. They demand better socio-professional conditions and denounce the injustice and the neglect of the Mahsen regime. We are demonstrating today because of the arrest of the contractual teachers who were protesting about their rights. Despite the repression of the Mahsen regime by which they are faced, the protesting teachers will use all the means they have to make their voices heard. The government is mobilizing an army to repress the contractual teachers and prevent them from demanding their legitimate rights. Not only that, but also by passing harsh sentences to the protesters, such as a year imprisonment and financial sanctions, without mentioning what's going on in the other regions. These heinous acts are strongly denounced by the Moroccan human rights associations. The local authorities are against the visually impaired people, while in fact they need special care, and they use violence instead of providing solutions for us. At Rabat, in front of the parliament, the situation is even more dramatic and dangerous, where the protesters were brutally beaten. Moving to another region where a protester was violently attacked, but only helped up by his fellow protesters to continue their demonstrations. The overall situation in Morocco is only getting worse, either by the neglect or by violent reactions of the Mahsen regime towards disgruntled Moroccan citizens, whose only fault is their constant quest for a decent life.
Strikes, sit-ins and demonstrations are rampant across the Moroccan territories, pushing the Mahsen regime to react and find solutions to an unbearable situation. Melissa Kubash once again.
A real chaos is rampant across the Moroccan territories. Strikes, demonstrations and sittings became the daily life of Moroccan citizens, suffering from poverty, the high cost of staples and disastrous living conditions. According to economic experts, the Mahsen's policy is incapable of dealing with the food security and the demands of the market, making 80% of the population work twice as hard with the hope of gaining a decent life.
فلفله ب 1000 فرنك، كورجيت 360، ماطيشه ب 300، البصله 160. شايفين هاد العذاب واش جبحوره حنايا وكناكلوا السردين ب 300. ها بلاد فلاحيه وكناكلوا بحال هاد العافيه، حشومه كاع، نتوما قتلونوا هنيو راسكم كاع، علاش دايرين هاد العذاب؟ هذه بلاد هاد المرا دابا عندها 70 عام باغا تبيع الميكا في السوق. لا سكنه فين غالينا صاحبي فين؟ وكلم. واش انا غادي نقول لك حل لي الحدود وخليني نحرق؟
واش انا دري صغير الله يرضي عليك يا ولدي؟ واش انا دري صغير غادي نقول لك حل لي الحدود وخليني نمشي نبني مستقبلي في اوروبا؟ انا راه شارفه، انا راه كبيره.
Moroccans are fed up with their ever-deteriorating situation caused by a regime that opted silence as a strategy and isn't willing to deal with the rooted corruption spread across its territory and seriously hitting the country's economy and development.
To sports now, Hamza Yassin is the first Algerian athlete to secure a berth in the next Olympic Games to be held in Paris 2024, following his best performance in the last African Cycling Championship hosted by the Ghanaian capital Accra. The Algerian team, which regained Algiers, snatched 21 medals, 8 in gold, a record harvest for Algeria in this discipline. And with that, our today's news edition come to an end. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.